various things really, and the most important thing that we covered or looked at the beginning of the week, we started by looking at golden rules of we looked at things that we can do in order to be able to facilitate change, because if you are like me, you know that change is not always an easy thing. Our bodies will always resist change, our minds will always resist change, and so we looked at ways in which we can be able to bring about change in our lives. And these are 10 rules that I talked about that are read from a book of this doctor that sadly passed away recently. And so today I just want to break a little bit that down. I will cover only a couple of those because I don't want to rush the 10 points. So I will do just really, really minimum, or one or two maybe, depending on how much time we have. And then after that, we will continue to build up on the rest of the things that we want to cover as we go along. God giving us grace, we still have quite a while going on with these things. So the first thing that we looked at when you really want to change, I'm not going to talk about them in order of appearance. So if you want to see them the way I've ordered them or how I've looked at them from the way he talks about them in the Just One Thing book, please feel free to check the short video that I've made on that. So I'll go straight into the first thing that I wanted to talk about. If you want to bring about change, he talks a little about number one thing he says is to do some recording and keep a record, basically. And I was thinking about, like, sometimes if you don't keep a record, how would you be able to track if there's any change that has occurred, right? For example, if you're tracking, keeping a record, let's say, of your calories, what you're eating, what is going in and what is going out, you can be able to know. And yesterday I made a video about calorie counting. When you keep a track of how many calories you're eating, you will be able to know when you've eaten more than what you need to eat, or when you're eating less than what you need to do, etc. Also, when you keep a record, for example, you keep a record of your weight, for example, you can know when you're gaining weight, you can know when you're losing weight, and you can always be on top of things. You can be able to track and know, okay, I've added a little bit more pounds than I need to, and then you can work through adjusting the same. I was talking to a colleague of mine. She's on a program of trying to lose weight. So we went out for lunch the other day, and she's saying to me, I need to be very more careful because I have been tracking and I've added half a pound. So I need to work hard to try and get rid of that pound. Because she's keeping record, she can be able to know, well, I've gone a little bit higher in terms of what I want to be, or I've gone a little bit lower, and she can make those adjustments. So record keeping is really important. You can also keep records when you do things like journaling. I've talked about the importance and the relevance and the why journaling is important, because you're keeping record of sometimes, for example, the things that have happened in your life that you have loved, the things that maybe you didn't even love. So when you do journaling and keep a record, you can always go back and think about, well, something happened and I loved it, and you 10 years down the line you can look back and be grateful for those things. But if something that has happened as well that you didn't like, you might as well process it down as you're writing your thoughts, as you're doing that recording. It will give you an opportunity to be able to come back to that and say, I felt really not good or rough about this thing that happened, but at the end of the day I was able to do ABCD to overcome it, right? Or if you're working through things like anxiety and you're keeping a record of when you have something like an outbreak, an attack or a panic attack, it will help you to know the triggers. You can keep a record of things like, for example, what was I thinking about, how was I feeling, what are my behaviors, what are my thoughts in that moment. And that can be really helpful with processing things and being able to come through to the other end. So record keeping is really important. How you do it is up to you. If you're doing, for example, things like weight, maintaining your weight, or you want to track your weight, it might be worthwhile using a couple of different apps that you can find. I personally use my Fitness Pal, which actually helps me to be able to keep a record of how much I'm eating, how many calories I've eaten in a day, keep a record of, for example, if I've gone for exercise, how many calories I've burned. And then it also helps me to know, for example, if I want to lose weight within a given period of time, I can put in all those parameters and it will tell me, okay, do you want to lose maybe 500 grams per week or something like that? I can walk through that through my fitness pal. You can keep a record, for example, I recently discovered through a friend whereby you can do things like tracking of intermittent fasting, so you can keep a record of that. You go on an app and when you're starting your fast, you'll say, I am starting my fast, I'm doing 16-8, and then it will help you to track and be able to come to the other end to know, I've done 16 hours, I've done 14 hours, etc. So record keeping is really important when you want to bring about change. And then the other thing he talks about is replacing bad habits with good habits, right? It's the rule of exchange, right? The displacement theory. You can displace something bad with something good. But how you do it again is, for example, if you're constantly snacking in front of your television, you can still, if you want to break those together, break those two habits together, it can be a little bit difficult because you're constantly snacking is not a good habit. And then you're in front of television is another vice, so to say. But you can decide, okay, if I'm snacking, I'm switching off the TV so that at the end of the day, I'm not distracted and I'll be able to understand or to know that I've snacked enough and things like that. You can also decide, I'm still going to snack, but rather than snacking on processed food, which yesterday I said is food that is full of, it's high in fat, high in sugar, high in salt. Those are foods that can actually result in other health effects. Instead of snacking on those really processed food, you can actually replace that and decide to snack on things like cucumbers, carrots, fruits and vegetables, which tend to have low calorific value but also have a high nutritional value. They will be able to fill you up with the fiber. They'll be able to give you more of what you need in terms of, I've mentioned the fiber, but also in terms of the phytochemicals or just nutrients, if I make it so easy in layman language, which are needed for healthy living. So it's like you're kind of replacing that. I'm still going to snack, but I will snack on a good calories rather than snacking on things that are full of sugars and full of fat. So you're still replacing something bad with something good. And that's something that you can still be able to do, which is another thing that he talks about. Number 2, in terms of the rules of change. Number 3, he talks about kind of when you're thinking about change, he mentions about having triggers, and I can see some of you online with me. Good to see you here, good to have you. And he talks about like triggers, creating triggers. And one of the things that he talked about that was really for me a good trigger is, he said, you need, for example, if you struggle with journaling, you can actually decide to bring your pen and your book or your notepad to your room, put it next to your bed, so that when you wake up in the morning, that's the first thing that you do and you see. And once you see that, the first thing, you'll be like, I better get it out of the way. I read a book a couple of years back that was talking about eat that frog in the morning. What is it that you want to do? Do it as you're waking up in the morning. Myself, my triggers are because I want to go for a run and I don't want, and that's why I'm dressed the way I'm dressed up. You're used to that if you've been watching this for a little while. Because I want to go for my runs, if I wake up in the morning and I have to start looking for my clothes, my gear and things like that, I will never get out to go to run. But because when I go to sleep, I leave my running gear in a place that I know when I'm coming out of my room, I will definitely see my kit. And because of that, when I see my kit, I'm triggered to know it's time to go for a run. So creating those triggers that will actually help you to decide, okay, it's time for me to do A, B, C, D and things like that. Sometimes your trigger can actually be setting an alarm to do something. For example, if it's time to fast, you can actually put an alarm at the end of the fast, so you know when the alarm goes at the end, I've finished my fast, it's time for eating. That can be helpful. The other trigger can be, for example, you're saying if he wakes up in the morning, this doctor says he knows if he doesn't do his press-ups in the morning or does his squats in the morning, that's it, forget about it. And it's the same thing for me. My trigger is I need to exercise in the morning, so if I don't do morning exercise, forget it. I'm done and dusted. So having those cues or triggers that will help you to know it's time to do this, and then once you do it a little bit and a little bit, it's gonna be something that eventually you'll become used to it, and eventually you'll be able to become a master of it. The other thing that he talks about, number 3, I hope I'm still counting correctly, and of course I don't have any app that will help me to know and do like how I count that. It's fine still. Number 3, he talks about trying to do what you need to do, stick to it, at least try to do it daily. And I found that as well pretty much helpful in a sense, because he says we normally say, and I've talked about that even on this channel a few times, and saying like we create habits, so we need 21 days to be able to create a habit. But you actually said it's actually not 21 days, but some latest research has shown it can be anything from 18 days to 254 days. That's a lot of time, but when you stick to it, over time it becomes second nature. And so sometimes we start something today and then we don't see effects or impact from what we've started, and we start giving up, and we're thinking like, boy, I'm not going to do this again. I've tried it. And sometimes when people tell me I've tried and it's not working, I ask, how long have you been trying? I've tried it for 3 days and I didn't see an impact. 3 days might not be long enough to be able to make any change. And if you're trying to build a new muscle, so let's say I'm going to the gym, I want to kind of build some muscles, or to kind of put on some six pack, so to say. Let me use an analogy of six pack. If I just go to the gym once and then I come out of the gym, off I go, and then I'm expecting six pack to come, it's not going to happen, right? But if I do every so often, I say, okay, I've done it the first day, if I'm able to do it the second day, do it the third day, with time, the brain starts to know this is something new that we're introducing, and it will start to embrace it. And over time, you'll be able to see those massive shifts that starts from little adjustments. So don't just do it once and think, okay, I've done it once, it's done, and that's it. Try to do it daily. Of course, when it comes to things like exercise, it might not be sensible to do it every single day. For example, if you're running, I run almost every single day, but you might not want to start running every single day if you're starting to run, or it's your first time that you're running, right? If it is something like, for example, going to do weight lifting, I see people at the gym that do it every single day. So creating a routine that helps you to be able to do that. And sometimes you don't need to have like 10 hours of doing the thing that you love. You can actually, I usually say I would rather do half an hour of a run every single day to become part of my lifestyle, rather than whenever I go out to run, I do 1 hour of a run and then I've killed myself for another 3 days. I'm aching, I'm feeling pain all over my bones, and I'm not able to continue to persist and to be consistent with that. So doing daily, again, be sensible about it, right? Be realistic about it. Somebody's regime might not work for you. My regime is I wake up in the morning, by 5:30 I'm out. If I don't go that time in the morning for a run, that's it. Forget about it. Like yesterday, I said to myself, I'm not able to go for a run. I went to the gym and I thought, well, I'll go for a run in the evening. I never went. I came back home, started cooking, had some couple of things to do, and then I had a meeting with my mentors, and then we had prayer time with my lovely sisters, and then at the end of the day, my day was done, and I never managed to go in over for the run. And so at the end of the day, being able to know, like, again, it might be for some of us easier to have like a routine that, when I wake up from bed, I'll have 20 minutes of maybe meditation, or 20 minutes of stretching, or 20 minutes of reading, and then I'll do that every single day. Sometimes it might just as well be scheduling time for it, having time in your calendar that you might want even to start blocking it out, that you're like, I block this time out because this is going to be my time to be able to practice that thing. And they say, for example, if you just do 20 minutes of the thing consistently, you'll actually be among the top, I think, 10% in the world, because lots of people don't really want to persist. Lots of people want to just try it once, it didn't work, and they move on. So if you keep on practicing, if you are able to do it daily, that's definitely going to be something that will be helpful. The fourth thing he says it talks about being kind to yourself. And I find that really touching in a sense, because how many times are we really very judgmental against ourselves and very, I can easily make excuses for other people's mistakes, but I rarely make excuses for my own mistakes. I'm usually my biggest critic. I'm usually my biggest, how do you say, I fight a lot against myself so many times. If somebody does something to me that I don't like, I can easily say, that's fine, make an excuse, forgive and move on. But when I do something, let's say silly in quotation marks, I will linger on that for a long time. If I say, like, for example, you say you want to go exercising every single day and you're not able to do it, don't judge yourself harshly. The world is already judging us, right? The world is already against us, so to say. Sometimes I look at my YouTube channel and it kind of just amazes me where somebody, I'm talking about, for example, healthy living, and somebody goes and dislikes and things like that. If I keep on focusing on what the world is already doing on me or against me, it can be already too much to handle. It can be already too much to think about. And so the world is not going to be there to be kind to you. And so you need to be really kind to yourself. If you miss a day, I mean, there's another day coming, right? That's why tomorrow is called, I mean, it never comes, but a new day gives us those opportunities to be able to work through the things that we need to work through. So if you're going to miss one day of exercise, so be it. If you're going to miss one day of something, but do not make it become like a lifestyle that you miss it until it gets to a point that you're not going to be doing it again. I love reading a proverbs every day, and sometimes I forget, or not forget really, but I just get caught up with things that I never manage to do it every single day. And I wake up the next day, I say to myself, I didn't read it yesterday, I'll read two of those proverbs and just move on, because at the end of the day, showing grace to yourself really, really matters. Showing grace to yourself and reminding yourself, I'm work in progress, right? Reminding yourself, I've not made it yet. And so I'm not going to be beating myself up if I make a mistake. I'm not going to be beating myself up if I've done something wrong. So we've done today 4 things. So we've talked about um, doing it daily if you're able to. It takes 18 to 254 days to create a new habit, so stick with it, be consistent with it, you'll end up seeing a change. We've talked about being able to create those triggers, those things that will actually help you to know when to do things, and those like cues that will help you to be able to know when to do things. Cues. We've talked about being kind to yourself, extending grace and mercy to yourself, so that at the end of the day, do not beat yourself up so much if you're not able to do it. And then the fourth thing we've talked about, keeping record, being able to track. I love the fact that if you're able to track, you can be able to look back and say, this is how far I've come. You can be able to look back, as they say in the old hymn, count your blessings, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. But how can you be able to count your blessings if you don't name them one by one? And sometimes the way we name them is by being able to keep a record of those blessings, so that we can be able to name them, and it will surprise us of what the Lord has done. I don't want this to be a long recording, so I want to bring it to an end. As always, for all of you who continue to share, subscribe, like this content, we really appreciate the help and support. Without you, we can't continue doing what we are doing. And so thank you so much. And I pray that you know you're loved, you're appreciated and celebrated. I pray that you know, and I usually say, God has given us the mandate to succeed and to have healthy bodies, because above everything, my prayer for you, beloved, is that you will prosper and be in good health, even as your souls prosper. Have a lovely weekend, and I will catch up again with you very soon in another live recording. God bless and good day. Bye-bye.